Good afternoon. Welcome to the first Texas Transfer Grant Pilot Program webcast. This webcast is being recorded. My name is Troy Lane Johnson. I am happy to be here with you today. I want to let you know that we have our Senior Director, Ms. Deshay Reed, who is here with us. She will be filtering questions or fielding questions throughout the webcast in our chat box. So feel free if you have anything come up throughout. So I am going to get started here. This is a brand new program for us, and we are excited about it. We hope you are excited as well. With all new things, um, it's a bit of a whirlwind. So just we are moving and grooving right on through, and hopefully you'll find it as exciting as we do for our students. So as I get started, our topics that we're going to be discussing here today, um, the focus is primarily going to be on the interagency contracts and the purpose thereof. Now, with that, it allows me to hone in on the allocation and the payment process, the terms and signature of the contract, and we're going to have some time at the end for questions and answers. Now, with respect of your time, I won't go through each and every section, uh, but I have pulled out certain sections of the contract to go over. Now, if you have questions over any section that will not be discussed here today, don't hesitate. Feel free to ask those questions, maybe offline, or and we always recommend that you talk to your legal counsel. That's with any contract, to make sure that you thoroughly go through each and every section. So as we move forward to get started here, I just want to recap about this program and what it's the purpose of it and how it came about. Some of you are very familiar with the governor's emergency education relief funds because you already participate in some of those activities for these other state aid programs. But the purpose of this particular program is to provide portable, need-based aid to high achieving students. Now, it's a particular group of students that this aid is targeted for, and that group is vertical transfer students. These students are ones that are attending or have attended a 2-year public institution and are transferring from that 2-year public institution to a 4-year university or health related institution. And so a lot of you, I don't know if you remember, well, I'm sure you probably do. It was back in, I believe, June of 2021 when Governor Greg Abbott and his legislative leadership announced that the state of Texas will invest an additional pot of money for the into the GEAR funds and in support of Texas higher education. So fortunately, we get to use a a specified portion of those funds for this pilot program. So we'll move into talking about now what this webcast is focused on, the interagency contract. I know that you all have not yet received these contracts, but we are working diligently and as quickly as possible to get these contracts out to you. So look forward to getting those very soon. And like I said, anything that's new, we are working our way through it, and like I said, we're excited about it, but they are coming to you. Section number 1 of the contract, when you get it, it seems very simple because we're talking about the contracting parties, but I just wanted to highlight for you all that the throughout the entire contract, if you see the term receiving agency, that's going to be referring to the THECB. If you see performing agency, that's going to be referring to you. So those terms could be used interchangeably. Your name, your acronym, or performing agency. So that's, I just wanted to highlight that for you in case you see those throughout. In section number 2 of the contract, it speaks of the contract term. This contract would become executed, and it becomes active upon execution. What this means is, once you sign that contract, or the person of authority at your institution, once it's signed, it's not executed, it's not live at that time. We have to get that contract back. It's a process here that it has to go through and receive the proper signatures here at the coordinating board. Now, after that happens, once that contract becomes a live, active contract, we will make a copy for you, and you will receive a copy of that executed contract. But it has to go through the process of receiving all the signatures that's needed on your end as well as on our end.
Troyling, I'm sorry. I don't think those slides are advancing for the participants to see. We're still on the Texas Transfer Grant Pilot Program slide.
Thank you, Deshay. I apologize. Technical difficulties. Let's see here. Let me back up. How about now?
Yes, we're on the topics of discussion. So
Discussion?
thank you.
Okay. I apologize for that. Let me just move forward. We talked about the purpose and the overview of the program. Contract. Okay. I think that catches us up, correct, Deshay? Am I good?
I believe so. Thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you, Deshay. Okay. That happens. So here we go. Okay, we talked about the execution of the contract, the expiration of the contract. This contract is set to expire on October 28th of 2022, unless for some reason this contract gets extended. That if that were to happen, that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later in this webcast. So we'll move forward, and like I said, I'll explain that. Section 3 talks about the purpose and statement of services. The primary intent, or the primary purpose that I want you to take from this, is the purpose that this contract had to be drawn up was because we had to have something in writing that where we could allow institutions to act as the agency or party to disperse funds to disperse these funds to the recipient. Because with these federal funds, we are the receiving agent, we are the pass-through entity. You are the primary goal is for you to be able to disperse these funds, and we have all the legal jargon that goes into these contracts, but you'll be dispersing the funds. And then here we have the statement of work, and with the statement of work, what happens there is it tells you it really gives us just the primary the information of what both parties are agreeing to performing upon execution of the contract. So you all agree to do your part, we'll agree to do our part, and boom, done. So um, next we're saying, and these are just, for example, we're agreeing to send you out the recipients rosters, so that you'll know who might have interest in coming to your institution. And then you're saying, hey, we'll agree to certify enrollment. We agree to submit certification of payment saying we've paid the student. So that's just a synopsis of what Section 3 indicates. Let's see here. We'll go ahead and move into the allocation and payment process. Section 4 talks about the contract amount. 4.1 is where when you receive the contract, it will have the amount for each institution. So you can also look at it as your allocation amount, because those are one and the same. Now, when you do your certification of payment and you're asking to be reimbursed, your reimbursement amount cannot exceed that contract amount. So, for example, if institution A, you received 100,000 and you paid out 75,000 for transfer grant students. That's how much you dispersed. So now you're saying, hey, I want to be reimbursed my 75,000. That's well and good. And then you call us and say, hey, I have about 10 more students that enrolled in my institution that transferred in. So that goes beyond that 100,000. Well, that becomes a different scenario. That goes into what we talked about earlier, the modification. That's something that would have to be approved if you needed additional funds. I would tell you, do not pay beyond the 100,000, your contract amount. You can pay one more student, but you cannot pay those additional students, not without getting approval. So that's something a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in the terms a little bit more. Now, the award amount per certified enrolled student, that means you've certified the enrollment for the student before paying them, or I'm sorry, not before, but you've certified the enrollment and now you're asking to be reimbursed. But those, it's $5,000 flat for the fall semester. That's it. No more, no less. And I know you might be thinking, what if an over award happens? We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Um, but for now, just keep in mind, $5,000 per student. We cannot go over the contract amount. Section 4.2 goes into the payment schedule. After you've paid out your transfer grant students, you're going to look at reimbursing. You're going to say, hey, I want my money back. Reimburse me. This is when you have to do your certification of payments. You're going to contact us and say, I'm ready to submit this for my reimbursement. After we receive that, within 30 days, that payment becomes reimbursable. That's when we'll go ahead and get you processed and for your reimbursement. The payment method, you'll be reimbursed. Nothing will change from the way you're being paid now, or your institution receives funds now. You'll receive a voucher payable to the institution, or you'll receive payment electronically through the Uniform Statewide Accounting System, USAS. Some of you know it as the comptroller. So that won't change because of this being a new program. So whatever payment method you have, that's the payment method that those funds will be issued through. I did put an additional note here because we still have to be aligned with those provisions in the Interagency Cooperation Act. And just in case you want to go ahead and read about it or know more, just know that all of this aligns with this act, and the reimbursement procedures, details about that is enclosed or within that act. So now we'll move into terms and signature. Now, terms, it's so much more there. So believe me, each and every section of this contract, I would encourage you to read thoroughly, make sure you understand it. Like I said, I pulled out sections for respect of your time that I want to touch on, but there's so much more to the terms that I would say please read. But I want to point out the section 6.1, determination of the contract. If THECB seeks the determines that your contract must be terminated, we would never call you up and say, hey, sorry, we got to terminate you. We would never do that. It must be provided in writing, um, regardless of the reason. There were many reasons listed, and it was no need for me to put them here because it doesn't matter what the reason is. You would always receive that in writing. Section 6.2 talks about the amendment. Modifications must be executed in writing, and not only executed in writing, it has to be agreed to by both parties and have no conflict with Texas law. So just as I mentioned earlier, if we were talking about amending any portion of the contract, if we were talking about you increasing your amount, if you perhaps were asking for additional funds for extra students, anything like that, any type of amendment, it has to be executed in writing. So we would come back to this section 6.2. We have to agree, my end, your end, and it cannot conflict with the law. So that's why it's very important that you read the terms and conditions. We all are pretty familiar with the right to audit and the records retention. Uh, does anyone like to be audited? No, I don't think so. But it's something that sometimes has to be done. So section 6.5, I would say take a look at it. Uh, if you accept these funds and you disperse these funds to the recipients, what it says here is that you agree to participate in an audit. If it were to happen, you agree to of course, promptly provide all the records, and upon request, you agree to whatever needs to be done with the audit entities. You agree to cooperate. So, and like I said, those of you who are currently participating in our state aid programs, which I believe are probably all of you that are on here, are aware of these rules and regulations. So, and the records retention. You must retain program records and accounts for at least 7 years from the date of the completion of the contract project. So that aligns with the current state aid programs as well. We're also going to talk about actually I saved the signature for the end. Stuck this in the middle of it. The federal forms, assurances, certifications, and reports. I just want to make sure that I mentioned this because these have to be completed with the IAC. So the IAC, whoever is your authorized person, once they complete that IAC, these federal forms must be completed and signed and sent back with the IAC. So if we just received the contract without these federal forms, that means you're incomplete. Your contract process is not complete. So to complete that process, these forms must be included. So I just wanted to make mention of that. So they will be attached when you receive it. Just make sure that they are returned when that IAC is returned to the coordinating board. Signatures. Because the IAC is new for us, new for you, you might be asking, who can sign it? Can a financial aid director sign it? Can the VP sign it? Who is authorized? Whomever at your institution is authorized or has the authority to lawfully bind your respective institution into a contractual agreement. Whoever that person is can sign this. If you are saying, well, I don't know who that is, we would say reach out and get guidance from your legal counsel. So, but that person has to have that kind of authority that they can lawfully bind your institution, not your financial aid office or not your business office, but they're representing the institution. After you complete, what's next? After you get this IAC, they're coming to you as quickly as we can get them to you. So that's the very next thing is you'll receive the IAC, you'll receive the information within saying how much each institution has is contracted. We ask that you thoroughly review. If you have questions after you receive them and review them, we are here for you. You can contact us, ask us any questions. We are happy to help you. Reach out to your legal counsel if something is confusing, whatever the case may be. But what I will say to you is that we will have a quick turnaround time because we are trying as quickly as we can to get these executed. So I don't have that date for you today, but once you receive them, you will have a return deadline issued to you. So as quickly as you can, go through them, get the signatures that's needed on the contract and these federal forms, return them to Miss Jody Lopez. She's here in our office. She works as and assists Mr. Shay Reed. So that information will be provided as well. Once you get that returned to us, we'll go through that signature process that I was mentioning. Once they become executed, we will give you and provide you a copy of the executed contract. Just the takeaway here is you cannot participate in the Texas Transfer Grant Pilot Program unless you have completed the contract process. We must have all of this returned with the proper signatures, and the contract has to be executed for you to participate. So that's the real takeaway. If you have questions, you want to contact us, you can contact us on our institutional phone line, 844-792-2640. Many of you are familiar with that number. We are open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. That phone line is closed from 12 to 1 daily for lunch. However, you may also submit web inquiries through Contact Us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You might wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, I got a transfer grant question. Submit it. Doesn't matter what time you submit it. We'll get it. and it's a good way to have a paper trail. So we will get to those as quickly as we can during business hours. And we'll get back to you um, on those, and we'll have a number for you, an issue number that you can always refer to. When you are submitting a contact us, make sure that in the received from box, you always put institution. Not that we won't get these, but to keep them from being delayed, because our entire agency uses this mechanism. So if you don't fill it out accurately, it could go to a different office, so it might bounce around a little bit before it gets to us. So it's important that you fill it out correctly. In the institution field, type in the name of your institution. For contact reason, always put financial aid question. It doesn't matter what you're contacting us about, but always put financial aid question. For the description, just type transfer grant program. And then always include the best direct phone number that where we could reach you at. Because even though I want you to put transfer grant program, you are welcome to give additional detail about what your question is, but make sure you include that transfer grant program. Your phone number, we would love for you to always put that, because if we need clarification for something, sometimes it's easier to pick up the phone than going back and forth in an email. And that sometimes causes additional delays. And sometimes we could clear it up quicker if we just pick up the phone and say, hey, can you clarify this for us? I hope that makes sense. Excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you. Today, today's webcast was focused on the IAC. I will tell you, program questions, we have another webcast coming in April. That webcast toward the end of April will have more meat about the actual program, about those recipient rosters, how and about the process. So I will let you know that that is coming. We plan to allow the sign up or registration for that program the beginning of April. So just keep your ears and eyes open for that. Any Thank you so much for joining, and any additional questions that maybe have not been answered. Deshay, I am looking in the chat.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us for this interagency contract PowerPoint. I know we do have a lot of questions regarding the program requirements, and as Charlene had mentioned, we will have a separate webcast specifically over all the program requirements as it relates to eligibility, how students are selected, what any rosters look like. So definitely be on the lookout, as she mentioned, for that flyer to come through on additional training over the program requirements. If you do have further questions on program requirements or the interagency contract, please feel free to reach out to Troylene or myself or through the contact us, and we'll be happy to have that conversation offline from this particular webcast. Again, this one was specific for the interagency contracts that will be sent out to you shortly. So with that being said, I do hope all of you have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your work